Hello everyone, my name's Daljit Nagra and I'm the chair of the Royal Society of Literature. I live in northwest London and for about 15 years lived up in Sheffield, so I do have a northern connection if you're listening to this from the north of our great country. If you're down in Cornwall or Devon, my in-laws live in Devon, so I have little connections dotted around this great isle of ours. So, why I picked the book or the author that I picked. So, I picked an Indian author called G.V. Desani. I don't know if you can see his name, but you can see that very bright cover, can't you? Very hippie-esque. Don't you think? Very colourful, purple with some pinks there and sort of paisley-ish designs. And this book is called All About H. Hatter by G.V. Desani. It says H. Hatter. H, Atta, not H. You say it how you want. I don't know how you pronounce your H's. Anyway, it's sort of a silly title, isn't it? It's also, Hatter isn't really a surname. I think in the book he wears a hat. So he thought he'd give himself a silly name. H, Hatter, sorry. And the book is really just a kind of jokey journey towards spiritual development that the character goes through. He wants to find out how to become a more complex, rich, spiritually enlightened person. I guess it's done sort of humorously, because I'm not sure if this guy in the story really believes in the spirits and God and all those sort of things, but he makes a great big song and dance about it. And it's just very funny. And that's why I liked it, because too many books that are funny are called just sort of light entertainment, but it can be heavy entertainment if it uses light entertainment, humour, to say serious things. Some of our greatest authors have used humour all the time. If you think of William Shakespeare, I'm sure some of you will have heard of William Shakespeare, and you may think, oh, actually he's not that funny, but back in Shakespeare's time, people would have laughed at his jokes. And after a few years of reading him, I started to get his jokes. I thought, oh yeah, actually, he's quite a funny guy. And yet he's supposed to be really heavyweight and serious and profound. So what I'm saying is humour is important to writing, people. So if you're writing a short story or a poem or a novel, do not be afraid to be silly. Silliness goes a long way in serious literature. Okay, so Jane Austen's one of my favourite authors. Jane Austen wrote 5 novels and they're all incredibly funny. Okay, but it maybe takes a while to get into the humour. But G.V. Desani, again, he's very funny and he uses over-the-top English. He uses kind of English I would call Bapu English, B-A-B-U. Bapu English is sort of 19th century Indian English, where you kind of speak in an over-the-top way. Instead of saying, can I have a cup of coffee, you may say, may I delight in the cappuccino froth upon this Friday morning, as I'm here before you know. It is a Friday morning actually, but I have nobody to serve me a cappuccino froth, so I'll abandon that idea altogether. But you might have somebody to serve you something, but what about saying it in an over-the-top way? Because we are language, aren't we? We live through language, we think through language, we talk through language. You know, if you want to win your lover, you're going to have to use some words, aren't you? It's not just about your looks, because if you don't, if you look, you might be good looking, but when you open your mouth, if something impressive doesn't come out, it might not woo your partner. So language is at the heart of our thinking, our being, isn't it? And when we're with our friends, we have to use a range of languages, whether it be serious language in a serious situation or humorous language. Okay, so I'll read a little extract from this, and it's in my piece as well, but I'll read a bit more beyond the piece that I've written, so you get a kind of greater sense. So this is part 2, and there are loads of different sections. So part 2. So Oriental means kind of in this sense of India, and so part 2. An Oriental gent whose only assets in the world were a sable fur coat and a genuine delight in information and learning, spent the better half of his life digging up a pyramid. He dug because a seer, a wise man, had confided in him that inside the pyramid was hidden stuff beyond man's ken, so man's knowledge. Many priceless diamonds. The task was superhuman, but the fella carried on and on, digging like kingdom come. After years of silent, secret toiling, hill pecking and hammering, at last the pyramid became hollow. Its solid exterior softened, its bottom upsadaisy, and its stone stronghold interior milled, pulverised, blasted to bits. Right in the centre core of the mountain that had been, where once the apex stood with such majesty, the fella found a perfectly shaped lair. The fella found a perfectly shaped lair. Terrible reading skills, don't you think? And in that lair there's a tiny cave with a minute oval entrance leading thereinto. He smashed up the cave, his body shaking from excitement, as ours is presently. We're all excited, aren't we? For lo, there, within the very range of his oculi, vision, was the reward of his relentless labour, i.e. diamonds. Diamonds! Did he recover the treasure, do you think? At which gripping point, listeners, I shall stop reading from All About H. Hatter. Now, wasn't that a gripping opening? And you can see, crazy words like upsadaisy and hill pecking, his compound, and the very silly idea of digging up a pyramid for years. Okay? Everything's slightly over the top, isn't it? And that's what I like. We like kind of social realism novels that tell us the world the way it is, and we like fantasy, which is in a different world. But also there's that kind of halfway book between the real world and something slightly absurd or said metaphorically. And I don't know if he was actually literally digging the hill for years, but it might be that he was digging the hill of knowledge to acquire the wisdom of the diamond. Who knows? In the crazy world of H. Hatter, anything happens. So there may be a diamond, or it might just be wisdom. Anyway, so that's one reason why I love this novel, and it's been a huge influence on many novelists since, but mostly novelists from an Indian background who write in English. So the sad thing from my point of view is that many people in Britain haven't heard of G.V. Desani, which is really sad to me, because he's a great writer, and if he were made an RSL Fellow, Royal Society Literature Fellow, I'm sure he would become more well known, and he should have been made a Fellow back in his time, but alas, he wasn't. He was a brown man living in London who was from India, part of the empire, so he should have been made it. I don't know why he was overlooked. It's very sad to me. Anyway, so I'm going to set a writing activity. Two things. One, I'm going to give you two activities. One, you may, like Mr. Desani, who loved his teeth overly, you may, like that, have a thing about your body, something you like about your body to an excessive level. Perhaps you could write about that part of your body, and just you could write a short poem or short story about the greatness of that part of your body. See, if G.V. Desani was here now and he was 14 years old, I'd say to him, "Why, G.V. Desani, young lad, you've got excellent teeth. Why don't you write me a poem about your teeth? Because they are uncommonly bright. What stunning teeth." And he would then go away and write a poem, "Oh, to my ivory teeth." And that might be the start of his line. He might compare his teeth to tusks of elephants, to the clouds in the sky, to a polo mint. I don't know. Okay? Or he might write a short story in the voice of his teeth. "Oh, why am I stuck in the mouth, the cave of this idiot man who writes his over the top stories? I, who am such a shiny set of teeth that I am built like piano keys. I should be music, and yet this man writes words instead." Anyway, you could write a piece in the voice of this part of your body that you adore so much, or about that part of your body. Short story, a flash fiction, 100 words, or a poem, a free verse poem. You could put images in that poem as well, because a poem can have anything. A poem can be anything it wants to be. Break the rules of a poem. For my second activity then, G.V. Desani's journey is a spiritual one to discover enlightenment. And in some of these sections, he meets deeply spiritual people who seem to be a bit over the top, a bit absurd. Okay? Now, I want you to write something in the voice of a spiritualist, an over-the-top spiritualist who thinks they have incredible powers, you know, and they want to maybe sell you something. Maybe they're a salesman type spiritualist who want to sell you their snake poison, snake potion maybe, or snake poison if you want to kill your enemy or your frenemy, whatever you call them. Anyway, your spiritualist is going to talk in over-the-top way to wow his or her audience or their audience, and they're going to talk about their greatness and how they're in touch with the universe, with every little flower, they're in touch with the wings of a bee, whatever you want, and how they can make incredible things happen. And I want to use over-the-top language. Don't say anything simply. Use a whole world of English language that you've acquired. Throw the words in, and be humorous, be over the top. And you might find actually at some point you might say something quite profound amongst the silliness. And you know, that's one way to write. And that's what G.B. Desani does quite often. He'll say something really silly, and next to it it'll be a sentence. Think, wow, that's quite a profound thought. And he just abandons it, moves on to another silly idea. So it's up to you to decide. So 2 ideas: one about an object that relates to something you're proud of in your own body. It could be your glasses, like me, or your hair, your earlobes. I don't know. Some of you may really fancy the look of your earlobes, the dangly bit at the bottom. I don't know. Or the second piece about you as a spiritualist. You are the mighty God has come to earth, and you're going to save everybody, and what you're going to do, or how you're connected to the universe. Okay, at this point I shall stop now, and I hope one day in the future, if time comes back again, and that G.B. Desani is born again, and that after he's written his book, RSL says, let's make this chap a fellow. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Until that time, goodbye.